Welcome to the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast on YouTube. My name is Carey Nieuwhof, and my goal is to help you lead like never before. So what I do every week is I sit down with world-class leaders and church leaders, business leaders, and I talk to them about what made them who they are and try to have the conversation with them that you would have if you got to sit down for lunch with them or have dinner with them or really got to spend some time with them. So we go into the backstory and we explore what made them who they are and some of the principles they've learned along the way. So if you enjoy this episode, I would love for you to like it, to subscribe, and also to share it with your friends. And in the meantime, here's today's episode. John, it's a true joy to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for making the time.
It's my joy, Carey. Thanks. I admire so much how you're adding value to so many people. I listen to your podcast. And so, hey, I'm listening, learning from you and from your guest, and all of a sudden I'm a guest. So thanks for having me.
Well, it's been a long time bucket list thing for me. So it's a thrill that you made the time, and that's very humbling to hear. I want to talk about a growth mindset. That's something that I have seen you have and develop. And I think Ryan Hawk asked you this question last year, but you could be doing anything with your life right now. You could be sailing around the world, golfing endlessly, but here you are building into leaders, writing books at this stage. I'd love to know what motivates you. And can you talk to leaders about like a lifelong growth mindset?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Carey. Well, I started off with a goal-setting mindset. My first personal growth program was from SMI out of Waco, Texas, Paul Meyer, and it was all in goal setting. And for 2 years, I learned to set goals, and it was very, very helpful to me. But as I developed myself, keep that in mind for just a second, Carey, and then let's go to. I was listening to Earl Nightingale about that same period of time, and he said that if you spend 1 hour a day every day on one subject, the same subject for 5 years, you'll become an expert on that subject. And Carey, I was really passionate as a very young person in my early 20s about leadership, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to spend an hour every day on leadership." And I did. I practiced leadership. I talked to people that were leaders. I did everything I could to stay in that leadership lane. But I kept thinking of 5 years. That Earl Nightingale said 5 years, and so I'm going kind of like a countdown. Okay, well, I've done that for year 1, year 2, and it's kind of like 5, 4, 3, and I got it just about in the middle of my countdown. I guess I thought it was Cape Canaveral or something. But anyway, I get about halfway in the middle of it, and all of a sudden I realized, Carey, that I'm changing. I'm changing inwardly. I'm more aware. I'm learning. I all of a sudden have a grasp on leadership like I've never had before. And this got very exciting to me. And I quit asking the question, how long will it take? You say Earl Nightingale said 5 years. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, touchdown. I quit asking the question, how long will it take? And I started asking the question, how far can I go? And I can tell you, everything changed that day. I said, wait a minute, I'm not going to get into deadlines and timelines now. I'm just going to absolutely immerse myself. And first of all, 5 years being an expert, that's, I like Earl, but that's, you don't, the more you know, the more you don't know. So, right. This expert stuff, the only people I know that are experts don't know much, what I'm saying? And so it's a never ending process. And then the second thing, now go back to my Paul Meyer, SMI, personal growth kind of goal setting stuff. I sat down one day after having the Earl Nightingale experience, and I asked myself a question. This is when I was preparing to write books. And I asked myself, if I write books, how do I add value to a person? What's the best thing I can do? And I came to the conclusion after probably, I would say, a couple years of really thinking this through, I came to the conclusion if I could help people do 4 things, that I could really add value to them on a consistent basis. And that comes off of what I use as REAL, R-E-A-L, relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership. That if I could help people get along with people, connect with people, if I could help people equip, train people, develop, empower them, if I could help people handle COVID-19 and all the adversities of life, attitudinal, and if I could help them influence people, lead up, that I would be able to really help people. And so instead of going for like setting goals, I took those 4 lanes plus my spiritual development lane as a person of faith. And I said, I'm going to these are the 5 areas I'm going to grow in. And I just have, I started diving, and I'm still diving, and I'm having layered learning and getting depth to want to know. But that got me off of the goal setting kind of mindset and got me on the fact of no, my responsibility and intentionality is to every day grow, just grow. So, how far can I go? How far can I go? And I don't know. I have no idea how far I go. I'm not even come close to hitting capacity. So
well, if I'm correct, you're
there is a finish line. It's so far out in front of me that I not only don't think I'll get there, I don't want to get there. Why would you want to be finished? And when you cross the finish line, Carey, you're finished. I mean, hello, what's good about that? So anyway, that's kind of my mindset on personal growth, and I'm very intentional in it. And have done it continually. And one other thing about growth, is that when you start growing like this intentionally, you increase growth capacity.
Yes.
And so my capacity to learn and grow and assimilate is huge today. Bigger than it was. I'm 74. Bigger than it was at 54. Bigger than it was at 34. Because I've stretched it's like going to the gym. I've stretched myself, and so my ability to and capacity to learn and apply and to file and to pass on to others, it's just kind of gone through the sky. The sky's the limit on it. So anyway, that's another advantage of having a growth mindset. You just increase your capacity to be able to learn more. You cannot give what you do not have. So if you got great capacity to receive, you got great capacity to give.
You got a lot of it's a leadership podcast, so a lot of leaders listening, many in the church space, many of them working on a church as you used to working at a church, but also a lot of marketplace leaders, business leaders, et cetera, who are listening to this podcast. I'm curious if you could take us back a few decades to the transition you made from full-time pastoring to leadership development, what you're known for and what you're doing today. Why did you make that leap, and what were some of the keys to doing it well?
Okay, 2 experiences, Carey. First of all, I never had any desire to write books. It wasn't on my list at all. But I had a mentor named Les Parrott, and he had written 6 books. And I never forget, I sat down with Les one day, and I asked him, I said, "Why do you write books, Les?" And what he said just changed my life. He said, "I write books to extend my influence beyond my personal touch and reach." And the moment he said that to me, I leaned on that table and said, "I'm going to write books."
Huh.
And so the whole catalyst of me writing books wasn't that I wanted to be a writer. Never was anything that I desired. But I really had a desire to extend my influence. And back then, before social media, books was really the way to go beyond your personal touch. So that's why I started. Now, that would be when I was, probably 35. So that's back in 1976, somewhere in there. Okay, 77. So then go a little further, go to about 1995. I've been writing. And I'm with my publisher in Nashville, and they said, "We've done some research on your books, John. And 2/3 of your books are being read by the business community. The secular community. They're not buying your books in Christian bookstores." And I remember looking at them, and I was shocked. I said, "You're kidding me." I had no idea. They said, "No, they're just loving your leadership principles." At that moment, I felt God just say, "It's time to cross over."
Wow.
I had no intention of crossing over. I've been a pastor for 25 years, loved every moment of it. But I knew now I could get to, in our world, in our terminology, I could get to a mission field. I could go to people that I could hopefully influence and add value to and share my faith. And so I crossed over. Now, that was a very difficult transition for me. First of all, I'm educated as a theologue, not a business person.
Right.
And for 25 years, I'm in my world that I know so well. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to a world that I hardly know at all. I didn't have any business. I didn't have any degrees in it. And yet these people were buying it, loving my leadership principles. So I knew my leadership principles were attractive to them. But think about it for a moment. All of my illustrations are gone. I mean, I can't. Hey, I can't walk into Delta and say, now, the Bible says, or let me talk to you about David and Goliath. So all of a sudden, basically all of the stuff that I had acquired to help me be effective in communication was gone. And so I had a real, and then, so it was very challenging. It was very up. When I talk about everything worthwhile is uphill, this uphill was getting like this. It was almost like a steep climb. And so it was very challenging for me. And I was out of my comfort zone, and I wasn't sure how to do this. I knew the principles work, but how do I connect? How do I relate? Yeah. And fortunately, I just had a teachable spirit, and I just went into that community and I started asking questions. And I said, you just have to help me. You just have to help me. If you'll help me, I'll help you. Because I have the principles, but I don't know how to connect with you. I don't know how to communicate with you. And then I had my first eye-opening awakening. And as Christ followers, Carey, I mean, we just talk and we connect. I mean, we have, there's a relationship because of who he is and who we are in him. But when you go into the business community, relationships, you don't even get a relationship until you get respect.
Right.
And they're looking at you and they're basically asking, what have you done for me lately? And why should I listen to you? And in my world, my church was one of the 10 most influential churches in America. There was a book written about them. And in my world, I just walked in and I had everybody's respect. In this world, I'm starting all over. I mean, forget what I have done. It means zero to these people. Right. So I had to, re-up my game, learn, ask a lot of questions. And then I don't want to talk about this much, but then I had a rough time with the Christian community they were asking me why I was leaving the church and leaving the ministry. And, did I sell out the money? And I mean, it was very, they weren't the most encouraging to help me cross over, but the Apostle Paul was very encouraging to me when he said, I become all things to all men. And I entered their world to see things from their perspective. And so now today I love this world, and it's a beautiful, beautiful journey. And I learned and I listened and I was taught well. And today I have the privilege of kind of being in both worlds, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, if I can ask you, and if you don't want to answer this, that's perfectly fine, but you're talking to a lot of leaders today who feel discouraged, who are getting criticized, not necessarily from leaving ministry to go into business, but they're criticized for everything. It's like, and how did you talk yourself through that moment? How did you not let the critics get to you?
Well, first of all, there are critics. But I think COVID-19 has been a very hard time on leaders because the dysfunction of culture and society is coming out ridiculously now. I mean, you just can't even fathom some of the criticisms and some of the thinking of people. And so I think this is a very tough time, and pastors are greatly discouraged. They've lost their main way of communicating, and they took a lot of losses, and then on top of that, they got a lot of criticism. And so I've had a lot myself. First of all, I've had a lot of benefit from criticism. So criticism, I've had a lot of help. Some of my best advice has been advice that I didn't want to hear, but I needed to hear it. And it was a blind spot in my life. And if you have a teachable spirit, when people say they're self-aware, I always get a little amused by that. We're not self-aware. The only self-awareness I have, Carey, is the fact that somebody was kind enough to speak into my life and help me see a blind spot that I had and say, John, you're going to have to work on this, or, and you're going to have to change this. So when I think of criticism, I think, first of all, there's some very, I've been benefited from a lot of it, but here's what I want everyone to hear. And that is very simple. Leadership is always surrounded by criticism. Good leadership surrounded by criticism. Bad leadership surrounded by criticism. What part of this don't we understand? It's all. You whenever you lead, you become a target.
Yeah.
So the issue is not how do I handle criticism? You're going to have it. So first of all, just say this is part of a leader's life. The question is, do I have a vision and a mission that keeps me steady during all that criticism? And it's Nehemiah. When all of his critics said, "Come on down," he said, "No, you don't understand. I'm building a wall. I'm so sorry. Can't have a meeting today. Hi, good to see you. Building a wall, building a wall, building a wall." And what I tell, criticism isn't what kicks me out of the game. Not having a mission and a vision that is greater than that criticism is what kicks me out of the game. It's like fear. I mean, we see a lot of fear during COVID-19, and people are talking about, well, how do I get rid of my fears? I say, you don't. Hello. I have fears. You have fear.
Oh yeah.
I know. Perfect love casts all fear. I got all that. But I mean, in reality, have you really ever met a Christian that didn't have some kind of anxiety, some kind of concern? Let's get real for a moment. So I have fears. The question is not how do I get rid of my fear? The question is how do I make my faith stronger? Because inwardly, I have two emotions that want my attention: a negative emotion like fear, and a positive emotion like faith. They're both inside of me. Now, who's going to win? It's very simple. The stronger of the two.
Right.
And if my faith is stronger than my fear, Carey, then my faith will win. It may have to work a little bit harder to win because of the fear issue, but it'll win. Or the reverse is true. If my fear is greater than my faith, the fear is going to win. So the question is not, how do I get rid of criticism, or how do I get rid of fear? The question is, how do I build up within myself a vision or mission that keeps me on task? I can't come down. How do I develop my faith inside of myself, my faith in God and who he is? And how do I build up that faith until that is the stronger emotion always wins, period. And so my job is, what you focus on expands.
It's true.
So if I focus on my mission and vision, it expands and gets bigger. Well, the opposite is true. What you don't focus on shrinks. So if I focus on my faith, my fear shrinks. And if I focus on my vision, yes, I hear it. I got the criticism, the disagreement. I got it. Good to see you. I cannot come down. I cannot come down. I'm building a wall. I'm sorry, I cannot come down. So what I would say to all of us, me included, is that during difficult times, you got to ask yourself, am I going to curse the darkness or am I going to turn on the light?
Yeah.
And if you curse the darkness, no one ever cursed the darkness into light. You just curse. You sit over there and you curse, and after a while you're done cursing and it's still dark. Or you could say, okay, no, I'm going to get over to the faith side. I'm going to get over to the mission, vision side, and I'm going to focus there, because that's what's going to expand it. So that's my advice: is don't try to eliminate criticism, and don't be hard on yourself when you're criticized. I don't mean this unkindly. Everybody's getting criticized now. In fact, it's becoming an art form in people's lives. And so, just get focusing on the stronger emotion, not the weaker one.
So we have quite a few mutual friends, and I'm going to run you through a few personal questions, if that's okay. So you love golf. It's a passion of yours. Apparently you have some rules for golf. I'd love to know about the rules. And then golf also has a strategic purpose, apparently, for you. So can you tell us about that?
Well, I love golf. I'm a like a 13 handicap, so I'm not really great. I'm
not bad.
And I'm a 13 because I don't play that much. I love it, but I don't have as much. To really get your handicap down to single digits, you got to play way too much for the time. I don't have that time. So anyway, but that's okay. I'm very comfortable with where I am and what I hit some good shots. I hit some bad shots. I love golf because golf is just like life. It is just like life. You have good shots, you have bad shots. And if you got a bad shot, you have to play it where it is. You can't say, oh, well, I'll ignore it. No, it's in the rough. You got and if you have a bad shot, you can't correct it usually with one swing. So you don't try to make up for it. You just try to get out of trouble again. And so I've always said, if you want to know what kind of person you're trying to maybe employ in your company or whatever, do two things: go play golf with them, and go to a buffet with them. And I want to watch you in the food line. I just want to. I mean, there are some people, they just get in line, get their plate, and they just start where they are. And and I look and I say, well, there's no leadership there. And then there are other people. They say, before I get in that line, I got to go surround the territory. I got to pick my spots. I mean, I can't have everything, so I got to prioritize. So I play, take them out to eat and take them to play golf. And by the time you got it, you don't have to have psychological tests. You got them all wired, in the whole process. And my rules of golf are very simple. I don't care if you don't have to be good to play golf with me.
Okay.
But you have to be fast.
Okay.
So one of the rules is we don't need 4 practice swings before a bad shot. It's going to be bad already. So just hit the ball.
Get it over with.
And by the way, if you lose it or you put it where it's hard to find, we're not looking for it. I mean, I never got up in the morning and said, you know what I'd like to do today? I'd like to look for lost golf balls. That's what I really want to do. I just want to go out on the course. I don't care if I play 18 holes, but I just like to look for lost golf. No. And I tell her, I said, no, it's very simple. I got a whole bunch of golf balls in my bag. When you hit a bad shot, you just grab another one and hit it again. And I would rather give you all of my golf balls than help you find yours. So now, okay, you talk about the personality. You can tell.
Yeah.
I don't have mercy gifts. I don't have patience. I don't have any patience in my life. So see again, all the stuff. But what I also like about the game of golf is that you never you never get it down. It's like. I've made a few times. I made mistakes saying, I think I've really got this swing down now. I think I got it, and then you don't got it. You just
Golf is cruel. I agree.
And so and I love that part about. I love doing something that I really can't master. Now, some people don't like that, but I just there's something beautiful about I think it's humbling. I think it makes me teachable. I kind of like to be over my head a little bit. And then because I'm such an experience-oriented person, I tell people, if you're, if since you're over your head, it doesn't matter how deep the water is. So go deep. I mean, go to the ocean, just dive deep, because, if you're over your head, you're over your head. So, go to the ocean, don't go to the pond. And so, yeah, I gotta, and yes.
Oh, that's fun.
We have a lot of rules in golf, but just remember the golf and the buffet. That really does work.
Yeah. What are you looking for, like, in the character of a person? Because I agree, having golfed a lot and been to a few buffets in my life, you learn a lot about people. So you're watching to see if they've cased the place out, and you think that's a sign of leadership. What are some other things you learn about someone you're getting to know when you're on the golf course or at the buffet?
Well, I think that are they honest? I mean, are they honest?
Yeah, that was not a par. That was a triple bogey, like that level, right?
In fact, my laughter is that business people that don't know God are more honest than preachers on a golf course. I mean, a
little bit of pastor math on the course, maybe.
Yeah, that's right, just a little bit. So I always just find it interesting that, there's the score that is, and there's a score that, that they put on a card. And so I think it's a game of, I like to see on a golf course, if the person that's playing has the ability or desire to root for the other person. Versus, I find, are they going to compete with me if I bring them on, or are they going to complete me? I mean, after all, it's just a game. The whole emotion, the ability to handle emotions. When I play with a guy, he gets real frustrated. I always say, well, now let me ask you a question. I don't know you that well. is this your profession? Did you do this for a living? And of course, the answer is no. Then I say, well, that's good because you wouldn't be making any money if you did. But since you don't make it for, this isn't where you make your living, let's back off a little bit. You know what I mean? Enjoy the game. I think you very quickly find out people who are comfortable in their own skin,
Yeah.
and people who are not. And so, just let's go eat and let's play golf, and in fact, a great day is when I can take them to my club that has a buffet. And so we eat and then we go play golf. And by, 2:00 in the afternoon,
You know them really well. You've seen a lot. Yeah, that is really important, even in interviewing or recruiting, selecting to get someone outside of the formal interview process. You just learn so much about people. One of the other values mutual friends, again, say is you love to celebrate, like a really good meal. So if you do a book launch or you finish a tour, a speaking tour or something, you hit a milestone in the company, you love to celebrate. What is the value of celebration to you, and how do you like to do it?
Well, the value of celebration is you do it with others. I mean, it's no fun celebrating by yourself. and so I'm a real celebrator. And my favorite thing is to celebrate the success of others. And every time somebody gets a win, let's nail it. Let's say, hey, this was a win. The great way to build leaders is by letting them practice leadership. And the way to build confidence is to celebrate wins. Mm-hmm. And so I love to, I have what I call a 24-hour rule, very simple. And that when something is worth celebrating, hit it hard for 24 hours. Just hit it hard. Go find out what the person that you're celebrating loves and go do it with them. And it's all about them. It's not about me, but it's all about them, and celebrate, hit it hard. And after 24 hours, go back to work. And it's the 24-hour rules works also in a discouraging time or a loss or a failure. Okay, groan, moan, kick the can, cuss. I don't know what you got to do, but you got 24 hours to get through it. And after 24 hours, I don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't want to hear about last week's failure, but I don't also want to hear about last week's success. I want to hear about today. And I want us to constantly live in the moment, and so it's a good rule. But I really love celebrating people, and I love being I love being on the team of someone that accomplishes something, and I get great joy out of maximizing that celebration, because I don't unless they're kind of an egomaniac, I don't think a person can celebrate themselves. And so one of the things I love about celebration is it's a gift to others that really does make a lasting impression. I mean, and so, when I turned 60, every month I did something special with different friends of mine. Wow. I celebrate. And we did different. I mean, I went to the NCAA Final Four with a couple of my basketball buddies, and I went to the Kentucky Derby with 4 other of my friends, and I went on a hunting trip with people who like But what I did is I did things they like to do, and I did it with them, and we celebrated the whole year. And so now I'm having fun, Carey, because I'll be 75 next year, and I'm going. And so in 2022 I'm going to do a whole year of people that I love, and loving people and doing things that you love with people you love. And so I'll lay out 20 by, I don't know, probably by November 2021, I'll have 2022 laid out and have plans to, celebrate people,
That's good to know. My favorite definition of intimacy is shared experiences. And that's a good reminder to all of us who sometimes put our nose to the grindstone a little bit too much to get out there and celebrate and share it generously.
Work hard, play hard, work hard, And, my definition of success, Carey.
Yeah.
I got this definition when I was in 1980s, when I just saw a lot of leaders who I thought were chasing things that I didn't think would bring really true success, and some of them kind of crashing, the whole deal. So I said, well, I've got to develop a definition for success for what I think it is. And so I came up with one, and it's really been good. It's lasted for, almost 40 years now. Well, it has about 40. And I think success is having people who know me the best, love and respect me the most.
Oh, that's so
I just think that's a good definition, and I think it's very sad. I think a lot of people that are kind of well-known, the people who love them the most are the ones who know them the least. And I just think that, if my family, that's where I want to have the, respect and I just think that's a good definition.
I think it's a great definition, John. So Brad Lomenick's a good mutual friend, and I was preparing for this. And one of the things Brad said, so Catalyst, you started Catalyst along with Andy Stanley and so on back in the day. And Brad was a young, barely, he was still in his 20s, I think.
As a kid.
Yeah, he was a kid. And he said he was astonished. He's seen this generally in your leadership, but particularly with him when he said he didn't know what he was doing. And you're like, you just run this thing, just grow it. And he says your ability to hand things off to the next generation, even when the next generation doesn't necessarily know what they're doing, is really inspiring. And it was terrifying for him and exciting for him as a young leader. Can you talk about that a little bit? What are your guidelines in handing things off to young leaders? Why do you do that? And that's a legacy, Brad says.
Yeah, I smile when I think of Brad. He's a beautiful person.
He is.
And Brad didn't have any experience. He was too young for it. But I don't hand the ball off to somebody who already knows something. I hand the ball off to somebody who has the potential to do something. And so several things come running through my mind very, very quickly. First of all, I think that most leaders try to hold on to what they have too long. I think that, when you hand the baton off, you shouldn't hand the baton off because you're tired. I never know anybody win a relay race when the guy that was handing off said, "Oh my gosh,
that's worth the price of admission." Oh my goodness. You're so right. You're so right.
You got to hand that baton off when you are at your peak best, at your best. You got to let go. If you don't let it go at your best time, when you're at your top of your game, your team ain't going to win. So I think, first of all, leaders hang on way too long. Secondly, I'll have to say that everything I do, as soon as I start doing it, my first question is, who am I going to hand this off to? And in fact, the expression I have in all my organizations is work yourself out of a job.
Right.
And when, when I would hire somebody, I'd say, now let me explain something to you. Your job is to equip somebody to do your job. In fact, your job is to equip somebody to do your job. And when somebody can do your job with a good sense of competence, when guess what? I'm going to give you. I'm going to give them your job. And I would tell my people all the time, if you'll work yourself out of your job, I'll give you another one. But if you can't work yourself out of the job you have, I'll take it away from you. Because I have no desire in having workers. I have desire of having leaders, and leaders reproduce other people. And so, and by the way, how does Brad get good with Catalyst? He gets good by practicing.
Yeah.
And here's what I know. I would create an environment for Brad to have some success. Okay. In other words, I was still putting my name with Catalyst. I was still putting people around Catalyst that were on the team. I was still using my influence. Okay. So it's not like he's going into a pure vacuum and he has to kind of figure it all out. But he does have to go in and practice. And practice means you win some, you lose some. And the losses are good as long as we learn from them. As long, what did you learn? The value of a failure is learning, and the value of learning is improvement. And you got to stay in that vein. So when I fail, it becomes a great friend of mine, not because I failed, but because I learned from it. But learning is totally overrated unless you improve. Now that you know what you did, can you improve this? And so, you throw people like Brad Lominican and I almost all my people I give the baton to are young. And I also, one other thought, I think people, when they get old, they get foolish. And I think one of the foolish things old people think is that somehow they were the last great generation. And it's kind of like, when I die, everybody's going to go to hell.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true at all. I think when I die, 30 minutes after I've died, they're going to be at some fellowship hall. And the biggest question they're asking is, where's the potato salad? I think, get over yourself, would you? I mean, my gosh, just get over yourself. So I think the next generation, my hope is they pass me, stand on my shoulders, go higher, do more. That's my spirit. That's my attitude. And they will, and they are. And my greatest joy, I know what I can do, Carey, good Lord. I know what I can do. I got that down. But what's more fun is knowing what other people can do when you empower them and equip them and give them opportunity. I mean, I have a coaching company called the John Maxwell Team. It's only 10 years old, Carey, and we've got 37,000 coaches in 172 countries. We're the largest coaching company in the world. And I just love giving them my name. They are John Maxwell Team coaches. And I had all kind of people. I mean, I did this when I was 64. I had all kind of people say, John, you've worked hard to, on that name and that reputation, and you're just going to let people have it? Yeah. Well, don't you think some will mess up? Yeah, I do. But hey, don't you think I messed up on the way of making? I mean, it wasn't like I was all supreme and successful, and I didn't have. So if I had some misses, why wouldn't I want to empower other people to use my name to have some misses? I mean, it's okay, It's, and again, and then to watch these coaches. My joy today at 74 is watching all the people I've trained, equipped, loved, given opportunity to, and watching how well they are doing and helping people and prospering. And truly, that's the greatest joy I have is just watching them succeed. I mean, that's a high compliment for a leader to have people that they have led and equipped succeed.
One of the things Brad shared with me, and I don't know whether you remember this or not specifically, but he said as he was taking over the reins of Catalyst, and you were the speaker every year for a number of years, when you kind of passed the baton, you said, listen, you don't have to invite me back. Like, there's no obligation. You don't have to use me if you don't want, which I found really moving. I'm not sure every leader would be there naturally. They're sort of like, well, you can have it, but like, I better keynote, or I better close it, or I better open it, or I better. Can you walk us through that dynamic? Because I think we would all be better leaders if we could get to that place.
Yeah, it's a great. I do remember that. Yeah. Here's what I would say, Carey. A leader is in trouble when they need to be needed. See, instead of needing to be needed, I have a great need to be succeeded by someone else. And so I remember, when Willow started Leadership Summit, I was the guy in Dallas that gave Hybels the idea. I said, you ought to do a summit, and start training leaders, because he was such a terrific leader himself. And so he said, will you come and speak the first one? I said, sure. And so I spoke the first one. He said, let's do it again next year. I said, no, you do it again next year. It's your summit, it's not mine.
Wow.
And I don't need to be here. You got to build it off of you and who you are and what Willow is doing. And he did. And of course, it is a phenomenal summit to this day. And Craig Rochelle's doing a great job with it now. But the point being, I have no desire. I don't have a great need to be needed. And so at Catalyst, I knew the only way that I could ever get it over to Andy Moore and the rest and Brad and the crew was for me not to come back. Mm-hmm. And I think there are times when leaders, it's one thing to say, well, when you don't need me, it's okay. I think it's another thing to look at them and say, you don't need me.
Right.
And that's empowering when I say you don't need me. Well, why don't I need you? Because you can do it well without me. That's a very empowering gesture. I don't get to do a lot of it, but I live in Florida, and so I go to Christ Fellowship, and I teach for Tom Mullins was the founder. Todd is the lead pastor. They're great guys. They're very good friends. In fact, I kind of moved to Florida when Tom was still pastoring, and he wanted to kind of reach the business community. And I said, well, I like Florida and I don't like winter. So I said, I'll come down. I'll do some teaching for you. And so I came down, and I'm kind of like on the teaching staff, although I only teach maybe 4 or 5 times a year, not a lot. But periodically I'll take Tom and Todd out to lunch, and I'll say, now guys, I want you to know today I'm resigning, being the teaching on the staff here. And the first time I did, I said, what do you mean? Is there something we need to do? Or no, I just need to resign. Because we're very good friends, and I would never depend on friendship for me being a teaching pastor of your church.
Wow.
I can be your friend without having a staff position. We can go play golf without me having to teach there. And so I voluntarily resign, and then they voluntarily hire me for another year. And so I said, well, okay, if you want me another year, I'll hang, but I'm ready to go. It's good.
Wow.
I can go. And so every year I resign, and every year they hire me back. But I don't want to depend on relationships. This is kind of sad to me, but a lot of times this is kind of sad. A lot of people, they use relationships to stay in the game. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, I'm on your team, Carey, and you and I are good friends, and I'm not maybe really producing for you like I should. And I said, boy, it's a good thing we're friends. Well, it may be a good thing we're friends, but it's not a good thing that you're on my team. You're weighing us down. You aren't carrying your load. And I think it's I just don't think it's healthy to put conditions on relationships and things like that. I just think it's, love people and help them, but don't hang around too long. I tell my crew now, my greatest concern now is that I stay too long. I mean, I just said, dear God. And so I give permission to, I've got Mark Cole as my CEO of all my companies. He's phenomenal. And I got all these good people around him, and I tell them all, I said, look, anytime you see me kind of not even starting to go down, but starting to level off, and I'm no longer producing more and climbing, you got to come and tell me.
Yeah.
I don't trust myself to know, and I'll exit. I'll get off the stage. I want to serve them and help them. I don't want them to have to carry me. I mean, no, I don't want that.
It's incredibly challenging and incredibly encouraging, John, to hear you say that. And I think it solves an awful lot of the challenges that leaders, churches, businesses are facing. I remember, I think it's like over 90% of all businesses die with their founder. And you can look at the history of church, and it's the same thing, right? You have either, the church plant fails, or you have somebody who led it really well, and then it kind of peaks off and troughs, and then hopefully you get another leader down the road. But I love that model. Thank you for unpacking.
They birth it. Too many leaders, they birth it and then they bury it. And that's not where. Isn't that true? And that isn't where we want to go. And again, because all the time asked by people, maybe my age, they'll say, I'm thinking maybe I should leave the church, and I'm just asking myself if I stayed too long, and I say, yes, you have. Then I smile and say, to be honest with you, the very fact that you're asking the question means that you're the last to know. And everybody else knows that, but I mean, athletes stay too long. Right? There's a tendency for us to try to, there's a difference between respect and honor. I think honor is a beautiful thing. I think honor is where you take somebody that's done something great in the past and you honor them. I just think I think it's a great gratitude tribute to honor people. So I love honor. But honor is for what I did yesterday, but respect is what I can do today. And I've decided that, honors come automatically. They come automatically. But respect, you got to earn that every day. And I don't expect anybody to give me a favor. I don't want to say, well, look what he's done. I mean, what he's done is no reason what I do today. And so, I want I want to have respect. I want to earn it, and respect is earned on difficult ground. It's never earned on easy stuff. So I want to have it, and if I have it, I'll stay in the game. And when I don't have it, I'll go see the grandchildren.
Well, there's so many questions, but here's one I want to ask before our time wraps up. You got a brand new book I love for those of you who are watching. It's called Change Your World. You've had so many books over the years, and thank you for continuing to write. You wrote this one with Rob Hoskins, the president of One Hope. But I loved in it, buried in the middle of the book, is something called The Law of the Inevitable Return. Can you explain that? I think that's a really nice segue as we kind of wrap up today. What is the law or the inevitable return?
Well, the inevitable return is the fact that when you pour into people, especially if you pour into leaders, uh, it's what I call Maxwell math. Maxwell math multiplies. It doesn't add. A long time ago, we made a determination that because leadership is my calling and my gift, that I would speak to smaller crowds, but they would be leaders.
Right.
So I wouldn't always speak to the masses unless they were leaders. And so it's kind of like I add value to leaders, that's adding, who multiply value to others, that's multiplying. And so I wrote a book called The Leader's Greatest Return. And in it, I talk about the inevitable return. You cannot pour into, equip, and add value to leaders without it coming back to you in a greater return than what you gave. And so when you think of mentoring, and I've done a lot of mentoring, and you think of mentoring and say, oh, he's such a wonderful person. He mentors all these people, and he's so selfless. And I want to say, no, honestly, I'm probably quite selfish, to be honest with you, because the Brad Lomnicks and the Careys, the Marks, these people, they all come back. They all come back, and when they come back with so much more than I gave them, and so it's the long view of life, and it's the long view of the return. But now I can speak with great credibility. We're never good the first time. Okay. We're never good the first time. So I love people. Carey always said, well, I'm working hard. I've never done this before, so I really want to do a good job. I say, relax, take a pill. You're not going to be that good. It's your first time. You're not good the first time. Okay. But you have to have the first time, so you can have a second time, third time, fourth time. So in the beginning, I wasn't as bad as people thought I was. But now where I am, I'm not as good as people think I am. And so I ask myself, why am I not as good as people? Because I know I'm not. I know I'm not near as good as people think I am. I get way more credit than I deserve. And you know why people think I'm so good? Because it's all the people. It's all the people that I've loved and equipped and poured their life in. And so now they take these principles that I've taught, and they live them out, and they practice them, and they help people. And so they just bring a host of people around them back to me. And I'm not that good, but what is good is what I did. I'm not that good, but what I did is I invested in other people and believed them to reach their potential, and they did. And I've been disappointed a few times, but my disappointments are so small compared to all the incredible returns that I've had in my life. And so, at this stage of life, I'm surprised every day. Every day, somebody's calling me, somebody's saying, hey, John, let me tell you what I've done with what you taught me. And I look at that and I say, investing in people, here's what I say: invest in yourself in personal growth and invest in others in leadership, and you'll have an inevitable return.
What is one leadership question that's not being asked very much, or you never get asked, that you wish people would ask more?
Well, no one ever asked me. Kevin Myers, another guy that I mentored that I love greatly, said he was the first one that said this, and so I give him credit for it. That leaders want more for their people than their people want for themselves. And I love that statement. I think it's very, very true. And so I want more for people a lot of times than they want for themselves. And nobody ever asked me. Nobody ever asked me about my disappointments of how I wasn't able to give somebody what I thought they deserved. but I wasn't able to do it. I have an event every year, Carey, called Exchange. It's a high-end leadership event. We take 120 people, and every year we go to a different city. So we were in London with these 120 people and had an amazing experience. I mean, we had a royal dinner in Windsor Castle with the favorite cousin of Queen Elizabeth, which she had to sign off with. I asked Tony Blair to come, and he spent some time with the leaders, and we did some leadership stuff with Tony. We went to Winston Churchill's bunker, and the guy who did The Darkest Night movie was there. The producer talked to us about that. We went behind the scenes, sat in Winston Churchill's chair so we could feel the rough edges where his ring rubbed against it when he was deliberating during World War II. And then when they came out, I had his grandson meet with us for an hour and talk about what it was like to be in the family Winston Churchill. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I just kill people in these exchange experiences. I mean, when we're done, I said, you want to go next year? And they just sign up, and it's just an automatic growth time. But when we're in London, just have been a great fan of John Wesley. I think John Wesley probably had a positive effect on the church more than any person since St. Paul, personally. Okay. I mean, lay ministry starts with Wesley. Small group starts with Wesley. The accountability type, it's all starts there. And I wanted to take them over to, in London, to Wesley's home and his chapel there, and to his museum, and just do a Wesley, because he was so transformational. And I wanted to speak in Wesley's pulpit on transformation to these 120 leaders. And we were not able to do that we got into bureaucracy, and they said no. And so during this unforgettable trip in London, where the people were saying, John, you're killing us with the stuff that we're learning and experiencing. So in the last session before I sent them on their way, I said, I want to talk to you about a disappointment I have. I said, I wanted to take you over to John Wesley's. I didn't get you where I wanted you to go. I really didn't. Here's what you would have seen. Here's what you would have experienced. And I just have you to know that I'm disappointed for you. I just am. And then I talked to him about how, as a leader, you need to share your disappointments with your people when you're not able to provide for them what they deserve or what you want them to have. And I would tell you, Carey, these business people are just, tears are streaming. And I looked at him and I said, now go back to your group and not only tell them the highlights, but let them know once in a while you're disappointed because you weren't able to give them what you really wanted to get them. And I said, it'll connect you to them like no other. It'll give you a strong connection. And so I wish people would sometimes, with me, instead of talking about all the stuff I've done, they would just kind of ask me, what would you have, what did you miss? What would you have liked to have provided for people that you didn't pull off? Because I think it's good. Because I think people look at people like myself and they think too much of all the accomplishments, and they don't think of the leadership emotion of wanting what's best for people, and the highlight of providing it, and the low light of not being able to pull it off. And I just think it makes leaders not only human, I think it makes them very intimate with their people.
Yeah. People admire your strengths, but they resonate with your weaknesses, right, John? It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And we're at time, but I got to tell you, this has been a joy. I have really appreciated this hour with you, this time with you, and thank you for investing into our leaders on this podcast and the millions of leaders that you've impacted around the world. I'm incredibly grateful, John. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and I admire what you're doing, Carey. Keep it up, my friend. Keep helping people like me. We're learning, we're listening, we're watching. So blessings on your journey. You have a lot of good stuff in front of you, and I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Well, I hope today's episode was helpful to you. You can always get more by subscribing to my channel. I also have a lot more content over at CareyNiewhof.com for leaders in business and leaders in churches. And you can get transcripts of this episode there and so much more, plus some other stuff I do for leaders. So head on over there to discover more at CareyNiewhof.com. And in the meantime, I really hope our time together today has helped you lead like never before.